Okay, so Eva Clark is a clinical medical hypnotherapist and a master NLP practitioner specialized in chronic illness and health. So to begin, hi Eva.
Hi.
So I wanted to start. I wanted to start by asking you, how did you get into this?
Well, I got into working, applying NLP and hypnotherapy to chronic illness, starting with the allergy process. I had a client quite a few years ago. He came in and he asked if I worked with allergies. He had a very, very strong allergy to cats, actually. He couldn't even go to the movies because if someone had a jacket that had any cat hairs on it, it would just get him really bad and he'd have to use an inhaler. So I said, yes, I know a process that works really well with allergies. So I did the allergy process of NLP with them. And in about half an hour, we had completed the process. And we actually went outside. I accompanied him outside, and there was a cat right there. And he's like, well, can I pet it? And I said, well, why not? Let's best test her. And he pet the cat. And he had absolutely no problems. And it was incredible. He had the allergy for over 35 years.
Wow. And
And once he told me the extent of his allergy, to the point that he's been taking medication daily for 35 years for this allergy, I knew the process was very powerful, that I didn't realize just how quick, how immediate and how life-changing it could be. So after that experience, I started, pondering and wondering, as possibly many, others have done, is, wow, if we can do that, can we do something greater, So I started researching what had already been done, what had been, how hypnotherapy and NLP had been applied to, greater diseases, chronic diseases, and I didn't find very much. I found studies on managing the pain. I found studies on, increasing tolerance to chemo and on stress relief, but not on treating a disease in the same way or as effectively as with the allergies. So I decided to apply everything I knew to a disease, and see what I could do. So I chose multiple sclerosis, MS, and what I did is I created my own intensive curriculum. I signed up for every course that was out there that offered any kind of insight into NLP and hypnotherapy, specifically for chronic disease and especially for autoimmune disorders, since MS is an autoimmune disorder. I also was reading a lot of modern science. Psychoneuroimmunology really supports this work, epigenetics, quantum physics. And what I did was I started working with a small group of volunteers that had been diagnosed with MS.
Wow, that was a big jump from allergy to MS.
Yes.
So, how did you approach people with MS? So that they...
Well, I actually contacted a local yoga group that was specifically for MS, and as well a local chapter of the MS Society, and a local nonprofit that was called the Quality of Life Project, that was specifically for MS. And I told these groups that I was doing an independent study and that their members can participate as volunteers. There would be no fee. I was only, the only condition I would give them to participate was that they were committed to an hour to 2 hour session every other week for 6 months, and that they would track their symptoms daily. And meanwhile, while I was recruiting volunteers, what I didn't expect as I was doing the trainings I was doing everything at the same time. I was doing studies while I was beginning to work with people with MS. So I would learn something and apply it, see what happens. And what was interesting is while I was doing these trainings and working with these volunteers, is that people, teachers, other students would come up to me, or they'd send me contacts to other hypnotherapists and NLP practitioners that had already been successful with MS.
Mm.
So I contacted every one of them. I interviewed them and I asked them, what did you use? What were your techniques? What did you discover? And then through those interviews, I then applied what they were teaching me to see what was most effective. What could I repeat, and replicate?
Mm-hmm.
And so my study with MS, and I had a first group. I began with 7 people for 6 months. 5 of them completed the 6 months. And then afterwards, I decided to do it again because I was learning so much and, I had gotten so much training that I then had 17 volunteers work with me, and 15 of those completed the 6 months with me. And after I completed that second group, I could see that there was a lot more possible. I was actually slowly transforming my strategy. So, and I'll talk about that a little later. So I actually got 12 of the volunteers to continue with me for 3 more months.
Wow.
And again, I was continuing to study, continuing to interview, and gaining all this experience as I was working with them, to what worked and what didn't and what could be replicated.
So since you start working with volunteers, we're in a year of working with volunteers, right?
So,
and what were your discoveries in all that time?
So I worked with the volunteers in a total of 2.5 years. Wow. The discoveries evolved. So at first, with that first group, like most practitioners and most healthcare practitioners, I just tried to get rid of the symptoms. Yet, early on in the second group of volunteers, the second 6 months, I had some key learnings and key interviews that totally transformed my strategy and how I worked with disease. So so because of that, it was why I continued and extended the study for 3 additional months. So 15 people continued with me for 9 full months. And what I discovered, I guess the key pieces that I discovered halfway through my study were, one, I had an interview and I read the work of Earl Corliss and Charlie Clausen. I'll put their, I'll see how I can, they have a book called And Then a Miracle Happens. And Earl Corliss had done NLP for health training. It's a 15-day training here in California many years ago. It's like 25 years ago. And his neighbor, Charlie, had MS. And like myself, he said, wow, if we could, affect allergies, what else can he do? So he began working with Charlie. And eventually they spent more than a year working together. And then Charlie also took NLP training. And eventually Charlie became completely symptom-free. She was no longer needing assistance to walk, nothing, no longer had fatigues, no longer had all the numbing. She was completely free. And when I interviewed them, this is 25 years later, they really changed the strategy. They taught me that to not attempt to cure anything, but to have my clients understand fully what each symptom is there for. Each symptom has a cause and has meaning. And once we find that cause and that meaning, they taught me to make the appropriate changes in these, in their beliefs, in their values, in their lifestyles. And if they did so, they could become symptom-free. After interviewing them, I stopped trying to get rid of anything, They also pointed out, which was really key, Charlie told me a story. So I interviewed her several years ago, and the year before I interviewed her, her brother had passed, and she was very worried about her niece. Her niece was going to have to take care of everything and do all this housework and packing everything on her own. So Charlie says, I need to go to help her. I need to go help her. So she got really into taskmaster and getting stuff done with her niece. And while she was fixing everything and getting everything ready, she started having numbing. The numbing she had had 25 years before with, when she was experiencing MS. And what she told me was, Eva, I no longer like freaked out going, oh my gosh, I have MS again. All this is happening, and to boot, I have MS. What she told herself was, oh, wow. And she looked at her hand and she's like, wow, I must be forgetting something. Because she knew that the symptom was there and it had a message. And it'd been so many years that, of course, she'd hardly even remember. And so she talked to her body and she said, okay, I'm in the middle of doing all this packing. Tomorrow we'll be done and I'll sit down and I'll find out and I'll remember, find out and have a conversation with my own body and find out, what is this symptom trying to tell me? So she made a contract with herself that she would talk to her body the next day. And she said the numbing went away slightly, but it was still there. And the next morning they were packing everything up. And in the middle of that, her niece stops all she was doing. And she starts crying, starts bawling. And Charlie looks at her. And then it just dawns on her. She was so focused on getting everything done that she hadn't stopped to grief, to really feel the impact of what was happening. And the minute she remembered that's what the numbing had been for her, was her way of closing down feelings, which is a big piece of multiple sclerosis, she stopped everything she was doing and just let herself, fully feel and be there present with her niece. And she said the minute she did that, the numbing went away. It was right then. And so that really gave me a guideline that the symptoms are just messengers, and they'll be there as long as the beliefs or the habit patterns or the lifestyles are there. And if they return, they'll be there, but they're like, she calls them best friends, they're there to remind you, and that's all. And that was a huge learning. Also, they taught me that symptoms and disease, to treat them as verbs, to have a disease, like when we talk about I have cancer, it sounds like it's a noun, I have a house, and it's not. They said to treat it as a verb. It's an action that's taking place in the body. And it is as well, not only is it an action, it's only a part of the body that is doing that action. It is not the whole body. And so they talked about, you need to find out why that action is occurring. What you're going to do is modify the need for that action. So it makes it a lot easier to work with something. If any of you guys remember the neurological levels, it makes it a lot easier to work with a behavior, capability, and action than to work with an identity level issue. I am, or I have this disease. So that was key. Also, during this second group of 6 months, I interviewed and then began studying with Rüdiger Dahlke. Rüdiger Dahlke is a German doctor. He's been doing trance work with his patients for, I would say, even 40 years. And he teaches that disease is an expression, the disease is expressing a temporary solution to a problem. He says the disease or the symptoms aren't the problem. They're actually pointing to the problem. And what we need to do is find out what it's pointing to, what is the problem, and the problem is inside the person's life, not inside their body. And once you know what the problem is, then you can work on the problem. Work on the problem, the body doesn't need to continue to express it. He also grouped disease into archetypes that allow us to understand what are the developmental areas that each disease invites us to master, and the problems that each symptom is attempting to temporarily resolve for us until we resolve it at a higher level. Also, I think a third key piece that I learned while I was doing the MS study was, it was actually, it was I wouldn't say failure, but it was an issue. Another person I'd interviewed, his name is Dr. Jose Dulce. He's a neurosurgeon from Colombia, and he uses a lot of visual imagery. And so I interviewed him. He gave me the visual imagery he used for MS, and he told me a story as well. He said he had a client with MS who, through the visual imagery, and this is a type of visual imagery that it's a very short process. You do it maybe 2 to 3 times a day for a period of 3 months. And he said that his client with MS had used the visual imagery and had gotten out of her wheelchair. However, some year later or so, she had a major crisis in her life with her husband, and it put her right back into a wheelchair. He again gave her visual imagery and got her out of the wheelchair. But what that really told me was that if we don't work directly with the cause and the triggers, we're just patching the symptoms. And if something happens in our lives, which, you know, happens to all of us all the time, the symptoms can come back. And so he really showed me to, because of what he was doing, he showed me to not focus so much on removing the symptom. It is not success if you just remove the symptom. So with all this learning, the work began to go in a whole new direction. From getting rid of disease, to actually understanding deeply what the body was trying to do for the client. There's positive intention. And then working to transform that solution that is being presented by the body into a psychic solution, into a more higher neurological levels, psychological, and lifestyle change solutions.
So Eva, while you're learning all this and working with your people, with your volunteers, so you said that you have spent already 2.5 years with your MS study, and then what happened?
So when I finished the study, I had all of them, as I mentioned before, I had everyone following their symptoms daily. They were also taking an MS quality of life questionnaire at the first session, the 6 months in and 9 months in. So we were following and tracking this study as any, scientific study. I was trying to be as scientific as I could. So I wrote the paper. I had the charts. I had the outcomes, and they were pretty good. I mean, on average, cognitive function, and I'm going to read these because so on average, the people that I worked with had a 65% average in cognitive function. That's considering that 100% is like a healthy, average healthy person. So they averaged 65% in cognitive function. By the end of the study, they were averaging 95%. Energy levels and fatigue is a major thing with multiple sclerosis. They went from 30% out of 100, they went up to 60%. And pain, they went from 35 to 50%. So overall, there was quite a few, they really improved on their symptoms. I didn't get the 100%, symptom free that I had interviewed. Charlie had achieved, and Dalke's clients have achieved, and, Jose Dulce and others. But we improved. And a lot of them did report that quite a few of their symptoms were, totally not present. The thing that is extraordinary about our improvements is that most of the people that worked with me in these 2.5 years were people with progressive MS. So MS there's 2 types of MSs. There's remittent, relapsing and remittent. So you have a lot and then it comes down, and then you have an exacerbation, comes down. And then there's progressive, in which you're just slowly getting worse. Most of the people in my study were progressive. They didn't have any other solutions. So they were like, all right, let's do this. So we were working and improving clients who their doctors had said that they couldn't be improved.
Wow.
Yeah. We actually had to work on that belief that there were, that it's only going to get worse, because that became an obstacle during the sessions. But yeah, and I want to say that after the 2.5 years, I've continued to work with people with MS. I now have a system, I have a program, and that's what I want to teach. I have a program in place which I work through layers of the deeper causes and then slowly transform. And one of my existing right now clients that was diagnosed with MS, just this Monday, we had a session and I checked in and I said, okay, how are you doing? How are the symptoms? And she said, she goes, oh, my symptoms. Oh, I haven't experienced them in like a month, so I have my first MS, symptom free, totally symptom free.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah. And she knows what they are. She knows them. They're now like homework assignments. She knows, oh, I've got to do this. I can't forget to be doing this. And she knows what she needs to be doing to maintain a balanced life. And as she's doing that, she's having no symptoms. So
wow.
When I completed the study, I wrote a conclusion I want to write. I want to just comment really quick that the conclusion to the paper was that people diagnosed with MS have ingrained habit patterns of the mind specific to their symptoms. When those habit patterns are transformed using a combination of methods to bring, 1, insights into a person's habit patterns, and 2, resources to modify those patterns, the symptoms decrease and frequently disappear. As I was, completing the study, I was actually taking a training from Rudiger Dahlke, one of the people I interviewed, and he affirmed what my conclusions were. He said that all disease have distinct mental patterns, and that once you work through them and you transform them, you in essence make the disease obsolete so the body can stop expressing. So what else? So since the study completed, I've worked with people diagnosed with lupus, with irritable bowel syndrome, essential tremors, skin disorders, and I've continued to apply what I've learned. I now have a system to slowly go in, find the deeper cause, make the transformations, and remove the necessity of the body to express.
You're saying is that because of the study that you did with people with MS, you were able to create a system that it's applicable for other diseases as well.
Exactly. And what's been interesting in these, since I completed the study, is I worked with a lot of different clients with different diseases. But what has been surprising is I've been approached a lot. Whenever I explain to people what I do, I think, oh, they're going to tell me they know someone with MS because, it's my specialty, or, with a disease. And more times than not, they ask me, where can I study it? And it's been very frustrating. It's been more than, it's been more than a year, almost 2 years. And, I haven't had like one place to point them to, because I took, more than 10 classes, studies, lectures, interviews, and, this study to learn all this.
So, but then, Eva, where can I study this?
So now I can say it, now I can say, yes, there's a place, here. Yeah. Now, I can, since then I've been like, I don't want to teach this. I'm not ready yet. But I feel ready. There's a lot of material. I want to share this. I want more people to be doing this. So I wanted to do this training online to train people, NLP practitioners and hypnotherapists, how to apply NLP and hypnotherapy to chronic illness.
And why? I'm sorry, but why just people that knows? Why just for people that do hypnosis and NLP?
Because I want to offer what isn't there, what isn't out there. There's a lot of great schools of hypnotherapy and NLP. So I want to teach the specialty of mind-based healing, add to the basic knowledge of NLP and hypnotherapy. I want to bring like the how-tos, even in all the studies I did of psychoneuroimmunology and epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology tells you that the psyche, the neurons, and the immune system are constantly communicating. But None of the, none of the scientists, the P&I, psychoneuroimmunologists, explain to you how to, communicate to influence that. Or epigenetics, really talks about your thoughts and beliefs are more important than your genes. And they don't explain that. Well, how do you change your thoughts and beliefs so that you can, change what your body's expressing? So I want to explain the hows. How to change what's happening in the body through the mind, how to transform disease into health.
So since you're ready to do this course, what are you offering in this online class?
What I'm offering in this class is going to be a system, a structure to work with disease. When someone comes into your office and asks you, can you work with this or that disease? I want you to be able to say, yes, I can. Even if you haven't specifically worked with that particular disease, you'll be able to help them find the deeper cause of the illness. You'll be able to help them transform the mental patterns that created the fertile ground for the disease. And you'll be able to create permanent change so that triggers don't reactivate them. I'm offering this class online. We will be using the same platform, Zoom, and we'll have chats there, and we'll be doing a lot more, utilizing Zoom a lot more. The class will start on the 8th of September, and it'll be a 2-hour weekly online webinar. It'll be like 6 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays until the week before Thanksgiving. There'll be class lectures. There'll be demos. I've already prepared a lot of recorded sessions with actual clients so that you can see how the processes are applied to real people and not to students who, are following along very well, but real people who don't know NLP and don't know hypnosis and don't know what to expect. All the classes are going to be recorded, as I'm going to record as well this talk today. So that if you cannot attend one of the classes on Thursdays, you'll always be able to access the recording whenever whenever it works for you. I do want to point out it's a training. It won't be like a lecture. So there'll be a forum to participate. We'll be sharing because I do want to have students practicing with real live people. Because that's where
you mean between the students, practicing between the student, or having a client?
I'm going to be proposing that people work with, as I've done, with a volunteer. And I would like you, Loreto, to share how that has been. Loreto's been my first student of mind-based healing. And I asked her if she would come today and interview me. And I want you to explain a little bit how it went, because I gave you a lot of the theories and stuff and was pushing you to put it into practice, to try it, to just start and see what was coming up. And how was that?
It's been quite a journey, quite a ride from awesome to I don't want to do it. And the awesome part was that, wow, tons of information, eye-opener. It's fascinating information that Eva has. And then I was brave enough to have my first client. And in the interview with this person, I just freaked out. I just freaked out because I started discovering my own beliefs around disease. And I called Eva, and she mentored me for 20 minutes, and she changed completely she changed my view about disease. And what happened was that I started seeing disease as this huge monster that I had to confront, right? And she said, nope, you have to welcome it. It's not about confronting. It's not about fixing. It's not about curing. It's about getting to know. It's about welcoming, because actually the symptom, the disease, it's a key participant into the journey of healing for the client, right? So then Eva shared a couple of stories, and she humanized the entire story. And by my second session, I I didn't have the fear. I just didn't have the fear. I knew that I wasn't in the position of a doctor. I wasn't healing anything. It's the person does it. And I also discovered my limiting beliefs around disease, which, I mean, we are, it's all over in society. I mean, if you hear the word cancer, you freaked out right there. And if you, anything, it's, any disease is ready, it's bad, right? And you need to get ready of. You need to cure it. You need to fix it. And no, the eye-opening was, I don't have to do any of that. Actually, it's the helper. So after that, it was her mentoring for 20 minutes. It was awesome. And I'm way more relaxed with my patient. And it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted really to include in the training, that the people that participate, they get themselves a volunteer and they slowly go through the processes that I'll be teaching so that they can put into practice and see if they have any questions. And also they can, like Loreto, discover what is their own beliefs, you know, what do they need to work on themselves to change so that they can be guides and they can be the believers that this is possible, you know, for their clients.
Mm-hmm. So, and dear Eva, so what is going to be the cost of this course and the requirements, the experience for this training that starts in September?
Yeah, so the course, the requirements are that, as we spoke a little earlier, that you have experience in NLP and hypnosis. In particular in hypnosis, as long as you know inductions and and even designing scripts. I'll be teaching a lot of hypnotherapy, but I won't be teaching how to do an induction or how to call out or anything like that. So at least has to have some experience there, mm-hmm. and a practitioner level for NLP. It will start on the 8th of September, as I've said, and can run until the 17th of November. There'll be a 2-hour online class weekly, as well as demos, recorded sessions with real clients, and a lot of resources, lectures, books to learn from. You'll also become part of a permanent forum for new and former students of mind-based healing so that we can share and gain knowledge of different chronic mm-hmm. illnesses. Mm-hmm. What happened to me is when I started doing this work, you know, when I started researching to do the MS project, there wasn't anything out there, you know, and even now when I work with skin disorders or with lupus, fortunately, I do have material of Rudiger Dahlke that I'll be sharing with you guys, but other than his material, there wasn't anything online to say, hey, if you've got this, these are the mental patterns you're probably going to be, you know, come up with, and this is what worked best. You know, there isn't that. And so I want, through this training and through the people who graduate from this training, to slowly build a resource library so that when you have a client that comes in, you can access a forum particular to people who do this work to find out what's already been done. You know, there'll be case studies there and sharing of what has been discovered, right? Like I know a lot of multiple sclerosis and I have a system for other diseases, but I mean, I could tell you all the mental patterns that you will find in multiple sclerosis, but what I would love is that we have that developed for most chronic diseases.
And I must say, you have tons of information, but tons of information, and actually new information that it's totally applicable to use the tools of NLP and hypnosis. Yeah, with the information that you have, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and you know, the course I'm offering right now, it will be 2.5, almost 3 months. It's going to set the foundation for working with chronic illness. After going through this course, you'll know if this specialty is for you. You will be able to work with people with chronic disease, and you'll be able to determine if you would like to become an expert. If you do want to become an expert in the field, I will later be offering a master class which will give you additional techniques to continue to peel the layers, to determine and find the mental patterns, as I did with, you know, with the MS project, to work through the medical and social nocebos, opposites of placebos, about incurables, to work with the triggers of illness that I also talked about, to remove any inner obstacles, secondary gains, because there is a lot of bits to it, right? We'll also in the masterclass be covering ethics and legal requirements so that you can market yourself as a specialist in mental hypnotherapy, and how to design and publish your own individual study to gain credibility as an expert, right, in a particular disease. I've included in the masterclass the publishing your own study, because I don't, most people, when they've just been diagnosed with a disease, they want to go and find the experts, my dream is that inside mind-based healing, we also have experts, people that other practitioners can consult with and that clients can go directly to, because they know what to do with this disease. So the class that I'm offering now, Fundamentals, will include the first sessions I do with my clients. So it will include going into and discovering the cause of the disease. Also transforming the cause, the beliefs and behaviors. It'll be the first 6 sessions and all the theories behind it, the universal laws that we need to keep in our lives, to the universal laws of polarity, of resonance, the laws of the beginning. So there's a lot of information that you, Loreto, has gone through to really understand. This is quite a paradigm shift. It's a new field of healing. It's a new way of looking at disease. And again, there's a lot of modern science that talks about this way of seeing disease. There's just not much out there that's how to get into those causes, how to make those transformations. And that's what I want this class to be about.
Yeah, and I also I want to add that when I had that experience with this client, I got into, I don't want to do this. This is way too much, because what you're really dealing with when you go with disease, it's core issues, core issues, and that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So I questioned myself. And I said, okay, either I stop right here or I go. Well, I'm going. You pretty much will be confronted with that.
Well, because disease is not about little things, drink more water or things like that. Disease is about your shadow. It's about parts of yourself or ways of being that you've decided is not okay. For example, multiple sclerosis, most people multiple sclerosis. So the thing with multiple sclerosis is there's many symptoms. Every client has a different set of symptoms. There's a lot of symptoms. There's fatigue, there's numbing, there's pain, there's incontinence, and not all clients have, the same symptoms. But one of the main personality traits of people with multiple sclerosis is A-type personalities. So these are major doers, major leaders as well. And they have decided early on in their lives that, fun comes second. Other people's needs come first. I'm okay. I don't have any needs, or I don't need something. I can deal with it and stuff. So there's big core beliefs there that need to be transformed. And that's the work that we're going to do here. And that's the work that Loreto was like, wow, this is,
Don't kid it, yes. But Eva, hold it. How much this is going to cost?
So this is the first time I'm going to do this training. So what I wanted to do is offer it as a pilot with a 50% reduction in the cost. That way it'll give me, because I'll be working with producing material as you guys are taking it, figuring out the Zoom thing and everything else. So I want to offer it as a pilot with a reduced price of $139 a month for the 3 months of the training. Next year, the training will be $279 a month. I think this is an amazing opportunity to be, you know, the first pioneers of this, how to, you know, this practical use of this modern science. And I hope you enjoy me in this, you know, join me in this specialty. I, you know, like this week when my client was telling me that I haven't had, you know, symptoms in a month, you know, I haven't had MS sleep since I don't know when. For me, that is like, it's like winning the lottery. You know, it's like you helped somebody and you've guided them to heal their bodies and their lives. And you've done something that's considered impossible, you know, and you've helped them do it, you know, you've empowered them. And for me, that's that, you know, what better way, you know, what better career to dedicate your life to.
Mm-hmm. So if first, where can I sign up? And if somebody else has questions, this is the moment to ask.
Yeah, so I'll unmute everybody. Before I do, if you want to sign up or get even more information about the course, visit mindbasedhealing.com. There you'll see on the right a link to the program and to signing up. There's also a contact page on mindbasedhealing.com so that you can contact me. And so now let me unmute everyone and see if there's any questions.
Hi, Eva. It's Anna.
Yes, hello.
I was curious, since I'm so new to this,
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations to earning your NLP so that I could do class?
Yeah, there's a lot of NLP classes. Get at least the practitioner for this level. Then in the master class, I will require master practitioner of NLP because the techniques are so much more complicated. But I would recommend, I mean, I did the course here. Actually, I think Tim Hallbarn has a class. I'm not sure if it's in Salt Lake City there in Colorado. He is an amazing teacher. He was actually my main teacher, and he was my teacher of NLP for health. Specifically, those 15 days of using NLP techniques for health and issues. So that's definitely a great NLP school.
Thank you.
So it's 2 hours long on Thursdays?
Yes. Yeah. So the idea is probably about an hour and a half of lecture or a demo, and then a half hour of questions and answers.
And what else? You mentioned a whole string of things. Is there going to be reading and demos outside of that? I mean, how many hours a week? Because I have a practice and...
Yeah, so other than the 2 hours, what I'll be doing as well is sharing recorded sessions with clients. So that you would do offline, and then I'll be sharing resources and books and things that I'll recommend. In the fundamentals, I won't require it. Probably in the master, I would require some of the books to be read, or at least some of the chapters to be read. I think that probably the only book I would strongly recommend that gets read during the fundamentals class is
Miracles?
No, that one's actually a very good book, but that one's like a novel. It's so interesting. That is the Debbie Ford, the Dark Side of the Light Chasers, because we're going to be working a lot with shadow with clients. So that is a good book. But knowing me, I'll probably summarize it in one of our sessions. So you won't need to read too much of it.
So the 2 hours is complete then per week. There's not going to be a bunch of other requirements of time other than some reading or...
Yeah, other than some reading, and then I'll be sharing recorded sessions with real clients that you on the side can look at to, you know, deepen and see, oh, how did she do that? You know.
Right. Okay. And are these videos that we can look at over and over, or are they going to disappear?
Yes.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'll be posting them on YouTube, and they'll be locked, so just for the students.
Okay.
And you'll be able to access them anytime you want,
All right.
even after the class is over.
And how long will the advanced one be, the next class, and how much will that cost?
The advanced class will probably be 5 months long, and it will start at the beginning of 2017, the prices to be determined is probably equivalent to what the fundamentals is, just twice as long.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that one will require more of your part, because I do want the students to be practicing and bringing back what they're learning, and as with Loreto, bringing back what their, what their own obstacles are to doing this work.
Okay.
And as well, in the fundamentals, I'm going to be recommending and, requesting that the students have a volunteer, so it's not just concepts. We all know that the conscious mind's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Oh yeah, it makes sense. And then it isn't until you put it into practice in which your own beliefs, triggers, and values come up. And it's like, I shouldn't be touching this. This is a chronic disease. Who am I? And all the other bits.
Well, as you discover your own, is there a way in this course that you can work with yourself? Because I've been doing this for 12 years, hypnosis, and I'm a master practitioner.
Good.
I still can't work with myself worth a darn.
I know. To go into deeper cause, I have not been able to do it. It is to then work, and so I'll be teaching in this class some pain release, quick things, because you want to teach your clients how to, on a daily basis, help manage things. So those is self-hypnosis. But to go into the deeper cause, I haven't figured out. To then, once you know the cause, to work on your beliefs and change, it's NLP processes. You can do a lot of them on your own.
Okay.
But yeah, deeper cause or your inner obstacle or your greatest fear, that doesn't come out easily on your own. It's really good to have a guide.
We're going to have to recruit fellow travelers.
Exactly. And I think, during the training, have another student and work and practice and give each other input. I think that's, a treasure that you only get during trainings.
So January, February, March, April, May, all the way from January to May, you're going to have this advanced one.
Yeah, possibly. It will either be then, or we'll have another fundamentals January, February, and mid-March, and then continue with the masters. So people who don't have the qualifications to do the fundamentals now, for example, Anna is saying, she needs to do the practitioner of NLP, can then in January do the fundamentals and then continue with the master.
Okay. What if you have to, I have plans for a trip to Europe. Mm-hmm. What would happen, or how could I work with that, or could I?
Well, the class is all online. So as long as you have even a phone, you can get into Zoom, into this same, this is the same, what we're going to be using for the classes. And the classes will be recorded. So you'll be able to access them. When in Europe, it's like 3 a.m. in the morning, the class. So you'll be able to access them right afterwards, whenever's convenient for you, and listen to them. So these, fortunately with Zoom, you have video recordings that'll be accessible to you and MP3. So you can just listen to the class as well as see the class.
I see things better than I just hear them.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
We each have a different learning style. I have to write in order to learn.
I'm writing right as we're going here. I got a whole pile of notes.
Great.
Well, interesting. I want to know a bunch more. I have too many questions. They're all like a big jumble at this point.
Well, if you want to send an email, and if not, come to the class. There's a bunch more you'll have once you start learning this information.
Well, so it seems sort of the same and sort of totally different than what I know and learned, what I've worked with. I mean, I've done some physical stuff, but nothing quite like this. I mean, I've done pelvic hip muscle rictus. I've done, lots of pain stuff, and I have varying degrees of success too. It does not. I mean, I don't feel like a magician out there. Like, you sound like you just work through it. You got this protocol. It always comes up. I mean, it doesn't always come up, but you're saying you had one pain-free. I mean, the MS, like your first one. Well,
Yeah, you slowly work through. I mean, the symptom is there. It's like a messenger. It's like a red flag. It's not there to, screw you over and make you have a bad time for the rest of your life. It has a message. And once you go through it, and as I said with my MS study, you get the insights of what the messages are, and then knowledge is power, but it's not change. So after you get the messages, you then work through and make the lifestyle changes, the changes in beliefs, the way you're being. Then you make the symptom obsolete. It doesn't always go away, but the majority of the time it does.
Okay, here's the other thing that I'm concerned about. I'm 65.
Yes. Yeah.
And my memory's not like I wish it were. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm having constantly to reread and look up stuff that I used to totally know, or thought I did anyway. And, I would think it would, well, anyway, it just makes me nervous. I'm going to get a bunch of new information, a whole pile. Will I be able to put it on the road?
Yeah, and so what I want to really teach is how to apply the NLP and the hypnotherapy that you do know. I'm going to be teaching a little more in depth, so it's more using regression therapy to go into cause. And
more using what?
Regression therapy.
Oh, uh-huh.
That's going back to cause and going, and talk therapy. It's like, parts work in hypnosis.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the reason why the program is a 50% reduction is as we are going through the program, I'm developing the manual. So as we go through these sessions, you'll be receiving all the material, and I'm very much a systems and structure kind of person. So then you'd be receiving the information and the guidelines of the different sessions and what you're doing in the session, what you're achieving, and what you're going for. What is your goal?
All right.
So any other questions?
Eva, it's Anna again.
Yes.
So should I email you if I have any questions at that mindbasedhealing.com?
Yeah. And if you have any questions now, this is a great place because other people will probably have similar questions. And if it seems to be very particular, just send me an email out.
Yeah, because mine's more particular because I have a background in counseling. I have a master's in that, and I'm a master. I cannot think of it right now. See, I'm right there with his memory thing. Yeah. Brain-based success coach.
Uh-huh.
So, but I would still need the NLP prior to taking your course, correct?
Yeah, and that we can review what kind of experience you do have,
okay,
just so that we see that the vocabulary and
So I'll email you with that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually, what I'm thinking right now is I begin the NLP processes with the clients on the 4th session because once the 3rd session, we're getting the key information, the behaviors and beliefs that are in place, and then we start doing the work of transforming them. So yeah, we'd need to see if maybe you need to be taking an NLP class on the side or something, or what we can do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much for already a lot. What was the one? Polarity, resonance, and there was a third thing.
Law of beginning.
What?
Law of the beginning.
Law of the beginning. I never.
Yeah. Patterns are set. Even how we are born sets some of the patterns that then continues to present itself throughout life. Mm-hmm. How the disease, the condition first began is a key piece to working with and transforming. So we work a lot on keeping our eye on beginnings.
How you live your life or how it unfolds, or what do you, I didn't quite catch that. Like your beginnings are.
How you begin anything. It's like even how you begin a relationship really is going to set like the core pattern of that relationship. I remember Dr. Dalke was saying that he started a business with a colleague, and at the very start, things just didn't go well. And they were like, oh, maybe we can get it going. And, and it was one complication after another. So then he said, you know what, let's stop. let's stop. Let's change it completely. Let's rename it. Let's do this next year. Let's add more people. This business is not going to go anywhere because of how it began. So you can make a tremendous effort and, keep going. A-type personalities, you're just, but if something really does not start well, that pattern is in place and will continue to reflect. He actually explained to us even the West Coast, I'm in the West Coast, and he said, the West Coast is a great place to start innovative ideas. He goes, because even the West Coast of the U.S., when it was created, the cowboys and stuff that came here, and even afterwards Silicon Valley, were some guys from the East Coast that felt very contained and restrained in their computer business. Their bosses wouldn't let them try new things, and so they're like, I quit, I want to try my own thing. And they came to the West Coast because here there is the pattern already set up for new things to flourish.
Visionaries.
For visionaries, yeah.
Yeah.
So
especially in Santa Cruz, where it was born NLP.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm birthing mind-based healing, which is actually, I guess, the next stage of NLP. In the same place that NLP was born. You're right. I didn't make that.
Yeah.
True.
And today the moon is in Aquarius, and it's in the eclipses of the moon, and that is for visionaries. And the moon is pretty much talking about the female. So there you go, Ella. Right on. So your beginning is right on. Yeah.
So this is bound to work. The law of beginning is starting really well. Very personal. I hope you guys feel supported and already starting to learn. So just keep skating the same as it goes. Pattern has created.
So that means if somebody had a very difficult birth, that's quite a beginning to work with.
And if they did, what is good is to regress back into that moment and find out what did the subconscious, what limiting beliefs, what beliefs were created. It has to be hard. I have to do it all by myself. What are those beliefs? Because if you can transform it there at the fetus, when it began, you can change the pattern for all of the person's life. So
are you familiar with holotropic breath work?
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that applies to what you're working on? Is there overlap in that? Do you think?
I know holotropic breath work. I've done breath work before. I don't have enough knowledge of the theories and stuff to see if it's all applicable. But
I have done a ton of it, and it appears that it's trying to go back to my birth. And I know a little bit about the,
law of the beginning. You start there. You're gonna hit a lot of core issues.
Yeah, it's stuck. It just keeps going there. And that's why I'm curious, because on my personal, also because I see clients and I get inklings and sometimes facts that's where it is. That's where these problems lie. The one I had yesterday, I didn't get enough information because we didn't have enough time, but my intuition said, this is birth. We need to go to the birth. So anyway.
Yeah, and in the sessions, we'll actually ask the subconscious to take us to when the condition began. Right. And interesting enough, it can take us to a 3-year-old, it can take us to birth, and I've had it take us to a past life, No, it's whatever, whatever is needing to be resolved gets resolved.
I've had those same experiences with things, but you're taking this then different steps further or off to left field or paradigm shifting or something, it sounds like, from what I'm getting.
Yeah, well, once you get the insights, you need to make the transformations.
Right, but in timeline work, that's exactly what you do.
Yeah, you do re-imprinting and all the core belief transformations, all of that. Yeah, once you get what the issues are, then it's just working through those issues. Mm-hmm. The key is to get the issues from the subconscious. Find out from the horse's mouth, find out from the body what is the issues.
Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other last questions? I want to thank everybody for joining the webinar, and I hope to see you in class.
Thank you, Eva. And thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.